All right, hi everybody. It's great to see the turnout here. So yeah, my name is Kendra Christian, and we founded Denver Action to Free Assange about close to right after Julian Assange's arrest, so a little over 2 years ago. And we are a small action group. We are nonpartisan. We are singularly focused on ending the indictment and free press. So we welcome everybody into our group, and really we hope to encourage groups to, really take on this issue as their own. So let me make sure I'm in my right spot here and grab a drink of water, and I will get started. Okay, one thing I am going to ask is obviously a question of you to start off with, which is why Julian Assange? So the other thing I'm going to ask of you is to please hold your questions till the end, because you will have them. So it's possible that I will address them, and then if not, of course, we'll have questions at the end. So why Julian Assange? So obviously, Julian Assange is quite the controversial figure. You've heard all around the media, hero, villain, constantly. There's tons of smears about Julian Assange, and it's not the easiest character to be supporting at times, right? People either kind of love him or they hate him. So why are we here? Right now, Julian Assange faces 175 years in prison. He is indicted under 17 counts of our Espionage Act and 1 count of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. This is the first time in US history that a publisher has been indicted under the Espionage Act. So what this does basically is give government oversight over our free press, and technicality, it has to do with national security, but I think, as everybody knows here, that's quite a dangerous, slippery slope. So that's what we're going to get into more tonight. So why Julian Assange? So this slide here is Assange, obviously, in some better days, and then also the most recent picture of Julian Assange, which was from last Wednesday at his appeal hearing. So I think that you can see his deterioration is pretty obvious. There's some other pictures in here as well, and we'll continue to go into that. Let's see. Right now, currently, also, in case you don't know, he's in Belmarsh Prison, which is in the UK, and that is considered to be the UK's version of Guantanamo. So that's where all of their, worst criminals and murderers, et cetera, are all housed in Belmarsh Prison. Okay, so why Julian Assange? Well, I think it could be argued that Wikileaks is the printing press of our time. We were in a situation where mainstream media was full of propaganda. Chomsky'd already come out with manufacturing consent, but did we see really much of a change? If anything, things got worse. So why Julian Assange? What did he do that's different? Well, he founded WikiLeaks, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and read this first part here. So Julian Assange founded WikiLeaks to bring important news and information to the public. One of our most important activities is to publish original source material alongside our news stories so readers and historians alike can see evidence of the truth. So some of the things that WikiLeaks has done, they've published over 10 million documents, and they've never gotten it wrong. Their publications have been used in countless court cases to, they've been able to prove stories, for instance, like Khalid al-Masri, who was abducted by the US, taken to Afghanistan. His family thought that he was dead, he was tortured, he was sodomized, and until the WikiLeaks releases, he had no proof of who had done that to him. So there's lots of stories like that. WikiLeaks has exposed many governments around the world. They've exposed corporations, and they've been a journal that kind of served as the fourth estate for the people, and they made a big splash because that just really wasn't being done. So. And again, to note, WikiLeaks, 100% verified, truthful information. So let's take a look here at the beginning. This is just some of WikiLeaks top releases. So if you look at the top there, I don't know if you guys can see that well, but the main thing that I just want you to note is that, I just want to make sure I got my right slide, sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, so at the beginning here, at the very beginning of WikiLeaks, we have them releasing something on Somalia, which, right, that's an Islamic country. Then we have them on Guantanamo Bay, so that's the US government. And then we have Scientology, so that's something everybody's absolutely interested in, religion, right? And then we have the Minton Report, which is a corporation on toxic dumping. So a corporation who dumped toxic waste. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that WikiLeaks publishes things across the board. So then when they really came on the scene, when everybody started to hear about them, is for these releases here that I have highlighted in white. And this is also what Julian Assange is, these are the releases that he is currently indicted for, okay? These are all of the Chelsea Manning releases. So you've got here your collateral murder. That's with the Reuters journalists who were gunned down. That's the video that was released. I'm sure you've all seen that. Very powerful video. You have the Afghan war diaries. You have the Iraq war logs, and also Cablegate. So in all of these releases, really we saw the truth of what was going on in the Iraq and Afghanistan war. And that's when he became public enemy #1 for the US government, okay? So later, after those releases in 2010, December 7th, that's when Julian Assange was arrested for the issues in Sweden. So that's something I'm not gonna go into too much here. Just note that he was never charged, ever. That case was basically opened and shut 4 times, always at key points, right? And always shut at key points. Never did they ever charge him. So that's really important because you see it all around that he was charged. So, so that started happening then. Even after that, he continues to release the Manning releases. So those did not stop and continues to keep releasing. After that, we have the spy files, the global intelligence files, until finally on the 19th of June, 2012, this is when things were getting really hot. You know, the UK, he had lost his final appeal to go back to Sweden. Keep in mind as well, it was always for Julian Assange about being extradited to the United States. Okay, Sweden has a 100% record of extraditing everybody the United States asked them to extradite back to the country. So that's why he wanted to avoid going to Sweden. So he claimed asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy, then in June 2012, okay? So, and he was granted asylum in Ecuador, right? You are not granted asylum to avoid sexual allegation charges, right? He was granted asylum because this was a political persecution. He was being politically sought after for these releases. So just try to remember that time frame back in 2010 when all of this was happening and all of this information that people had expected was coming out. You know, that's what WikiLeaks proved, basically a lot of people correct. What a lot of people, little voices had been saying, a big voice finally proved to be accurate, okay? So why Julian Assange? So WikiLeaks, again, 100% verified truthful information. So this is part of why Julian Assange. All of this was published while he was confined into the embassy, right? What happened to the world for 2 weeks being locked down? Everybody lost their mind, and rightfully so, I would say. I would argue that, you know, but I mean, this is while he's in the embassy. So he was on lockdown for over 7 years, okay? And what does he do in there? He keeps going. He keeps publishing, okay? So in the middle of these publications, what do we have here? We have the Syria files. We have the Saudi cables. We have the final text of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Remember, now this didn't go through. This is a big reason why. Nobody knew what was going on here. until this was published, okay? So a big win for WikiLeaks, February 2016, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, they ruled that Julian Assange was subject to arbitrary detention by the UK and Swedish governments since the 7th of December 2010. So that was a big win for WikiLeaks. So that's back in 2016 that the UN ruled that he was arbitrarily detained in Ecuador. Okay, so keep in mind all of this information that had been published that he had been after and sought after, no charges, no anything, but just arbitrarily detained with this fear of extradition hanging over his head. So here we go, kept going. We've got more documents from the trade service trade deal, the DNC leaks. Now there's some of steel for you. Right? That's a big person to go against there, Hillary Clinton, right? The other thing too is that what else is that? You know, Julian Assange is considered, just so you know, more of a libertarian than anything else. But a lot of his support has always been up from the left, quite frankly. Quite a lot of it has been. So, but what did he do when he had a source leak the DNC leaks? He published them, because that's what a journalist does. All right, so, and he kept on going. We've got the Podesta emails, the German BND NSA inquiry exhibits, the Yemen files, the CIA espionage orders, and then this one that we have the arrow to, Vault 7. So this was the largest leak of CIA material. So this just, if you want to know about the CIA and the apparent deep state that doesn't exist, I would suggest that you go ahead and do a search and look through Vault 7. The other reason I have this highlighted, well, you will see later, so just keep Vault 7 in mind, okay? And also, again, just to note, all publish while confined. Okay, so now we get into things really starting to heat up. Okay, so we have an election in Ecuador, and the government, Lena Moreno comes in, and he is not friendly to WikiLeaks, okay? Another thing to note, on April 2018, the DNC sues WikiLeaks, okay, for those releases. But one thing to note here is that they do not sue him for hacking any of the material, right? That's not a part of anything in the lawsuit. Quite interesting given what was said in the media, right? But that was not a part of this lawsuit against WikiLeaks for leaking this information or for publishing this leaked information. Okay. Another thing to note, July 2018, now the media is starting to report that the UK and Ecuador are working together to get Assange out of the embassy. Biggest thing here, though, that I kind of missed over, and I apologize for that, is the beginning there in March 2018 when the new government comes in, that's when they cut off his internet. So all of a sudden now Julian Assange is silenced. He has no internet, no way of communicating with the outside world, and they put strict impositions on him and his visitors as well. So imagine being in, one, you're confined to a place, right? And things are going pretty well. Well, now there's an election coming. Well, it didn't go your favor, and now things are changing. The staff is changing. He had new people coming in there, placing, new equipment for spying, things like that. Just the entire thing became very Orwellian and started to get really dark at this time. So, but what do we have from Julian Assange? 28th of September, 2018. Another publication, right? And we have another one the 11th of October. So, okay, now they've really, really had it, right? So now in October 2018, they imposed the 23 protocols. So this is where it gets to, I don't know if you guys have heard in the media reports of his visitors coming in, their phones being taken. Another report of his partner, Stella Morris, coming to visit. Keep in mind that nobody knew who Julian Assange's partner was at this time. And the security agency took the child's diaper to try to get the DNA to prove that it was Assange's kid. So he had quite the operation going on there in the embassy there. So things just keep continuing to progress against him. Things continue to get worse there. We have The Guardian publishes, and keep in mind this is all during Russiagate and everything, The Guardian publishes false claims that Manafort came and visited him in the embassy. Based off of that, you have, which our senator was one of them, but you have a group of senators, right, saying basically that something must be done with WikiLeaks. Then you have a little bit later in the year, Ecuador gets a $4.3 billion IMF loan. So as you can see, everything progressing, right? Things becoming more and more Orwellian until finally, and this also during this time, WikiLeaks discovers that are being spied on, and this was at the end of April. So, and the way that happened is somebody contacted them and said, hey, for a price, I'll give you all of these videos of Assange. And this was of private conversations with him and his attorneys, with him and his doctors, all over the embassy. They just had him on constant surveillance. So just every aspect of his life on camera. And that's what they were trying to sell back to him. And this happened at the beginning of April. So they found that out right before Assange was arrested. And then what we have is on then April 11th, Julian Assange was arrested. He was taken, expelled from the Ecuadorian embassy on basically, trumped up reasons that are false allegations, things like that he had become an unruly guest all of a sudden, different things like this that hadn't existed until the new government. Immediately, he is taken to the magistrate's court, and he is sentenced. The UK's arrest was for his previous bail violation when he had claimed asylum. He skipped bail because he had claimed international asylum and was granted it. The judge actually rules, she sentenced him first to 50 weeks in Belmarsh prison. So that's the prison I mentioned earlier, which is just unheard of for a first-time bail violation. That's the maximum penalty and the worst. I mean, it'd be like you having a bail violation and going to Guantanamo or going to Canyon City. It's just, yes, Julian Assange is a different figure, but we're also talking about a nonviolent person. We're also talking about the UK, who let Pinochet stay there during his extradition hearing on house arrest. So let's just, keep in mind what we're talking about here. So in that court case, the magistrate accuses him of being a narcissist. In the actual court, she says that to him. And what is that based off of? Off of media lies? What did she have before her? Or why is that even, opportune? So already you're seeing that bias against him in the courts. So then the U.S. comes out with their first charge, which is the one charge against the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And one thing to note here is that in the press release, in the heading, they have hacking. Well, he's not actually accused of hacking. He was accused of agreeing to help break a password. Okay, so already you see the picture being painted in the media. And I think I don't know if you can remember back to that time, but Assange being a hacker, right? So let's see. So Julian Assange arrested. The US has come out with a charge, right? We have people like, do you think that we had The Guardian, old James Ball here? This article is from 2018. The only barrier to Julian Assange leaving Ecuador's embassy is pride. So keep in mind, this is the kind of crap the media had going for 7 years while he was in the embassy. So what happened? Anything about, the indictment? No. Well, what do we have? We had an onslaught about how Assange was, not a good guest in the embassy, smearing poop and things on the walls. Just absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. It's disgusting. So a Spanish journalist was arrested for trying to sell them the videos for $3.4 million. And just keep in mind the timing here, okay? This is right at the beginning that this is known. So why Julian Assange, you know? This is when this is starting to come more into play, why you're seeing how terrible this was, this narrative in the media, this hero villain. So what do we have? Finally, 9th of May, Julian Assange gets visited by the UN Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer. Okay, now keep in mind that this is he's coming on the second time that he was requested to look at the case. He admits that he also didn't look at the case at first because of his bias about Julian Assange, okay? He just, this guy, he sped over it, okay? So, well, now by this time, Assange is already in prison. It's too late. He was too late to go see him in the embassy, okay? So now he goes and visits him in prison, finds that he's a victim of psychological torture. 2 people, himself and his colleague, both evaluate him separately and come to the same findings. Julian Assange is a victim of psychological torture. Quote from Nils Melzer. In 20 years of work with victims of war, violence, and political persecution, I have never seen a group of democratic states ganging up to deliberately isolate, demonize, and abuse a single individual for such a long time and with so little regard for human dignity and the rule of law. So here's more. This is stuff from his excerpt from his open letter to the US, UK, Sweden and Ecuador. Those letters were left unanswered for months and months. When they were finally answered, of course, they were canned responses, denying all his points, no allegations into it by any of the governments. And I left that there highlighted, but just goes into, just what Assange had been going through over those 7 years. I think people think that these characters in the media are separated from that somehow, but this is a man who was locked up in an embassy. He had a family. He was afraid for their life. He, he had the US government after him. They don't necessarily have the smallest budget for that type of thing. So, here's a note just for your own, just to see. This is something that's available on defendwikileaks.org. There's 21 pages here of different bullet-pointed smears and false allegations against WikiLeaks that have been in the media that they try to combat. So why Julian Assange? I would say that this is definitely part of why, right? WikiLeaks, 100% verified truthful information. All of these releases here, exposing power, doing what journalists are actually supposed to do, what they'd kind of stopped doing, right? We had our independence. We've always had our little independence, right? But WikiLeaks came on the scene, and they were big enough. They made a big enough splash to hold that iceberg back, to make a difference. They gave us, they put the ball in the court to make the difference, and they didn't like that, and it was making a difference. That's the thing, is they were making a difference. And they never got it wrong. So what do we have? We keep going here. Okay, 736. Okay, US comes out with their superseding indictment. So now we're to the meat of it, right? What this is really all about. It's been set in the media that this is about hacking, right? That they've got their smears about Assange being terrible in the embassy, who wants to support him? And then you've got what it's really about. And it's all of these accounts under the Espionage Act, which there are 17 of them, a total of 170 years. It's 5 years for the computer fraud and abuse charge, or the charge under that act. And basically what you have here is a criminalization of investigative journalism. And you have from the New York Times here, Assange indicted under Espionage Act, raising First Amendment issues. And like I had referred to earlier, first time in US history that a publisher has been charged under the Espionage Act, okay? Oversight over our free press. So they didn't do this, right? This didn't happen under the Biden administration. And why not? They called it the New York Times problem. And they called it the New York Times problem because they said, basically, if we do it to Assange, we have to do it to the New York Times because there's nothing different about what he did than the New York Times does. And that's pretty much the truth of it. This secure Dropbox that WikiLeaks has, everybody uses this now, right? These specific publications that WikiLeaks is indicted for, don't forget, New York Times, Der Spiegel, and The Guardian. All of them publish these same exact publications. They all published at the same time, okay? But still, nonetheless, it went through under the Trump administration, and we have all of these counts. And we'll go into that more about perhaps why exactly that was, and that did go through under the Trump administration. So again, you have everybody coming out against this. You know, you have all of these statements made from these weighty organizations about this prosecution, but yet have you heard about it, right? Are you hearing about it? Not so much. You know, if these statements are made, it's not something that's coming on the nightly news. A little bit more so now, so that's good. So let's go into the U.S. government position. Does anybody need a little break? Okay, all right, okay. Okay. Thank you, that was a good answer. Okay, I know it's a lot of information, so I appreciate you guys. Okay, so what's the U.S. government position in a nutshell? Really, it's that WikiLeaks is a high-tech terrorist, right? So we can charge him under these other counts, right? Because he's a hacker, so he's not a journalist. WikiLeaks, they have to be stopped, okay? They're hackers. It causes harm the way that they release. They don't have WikiLeaks doesn't have rights under the First Amendment. That was a point of the U.S. government in the extradition hearing, okay? I think I went through all of that. Keep going. So let's look at what a journalist is. A person engaged in journalism. A writer or editor for a news medium. A writer who aims at a mass audience. A person who keeps a journal. So I don't know if he keeps a journal or not, but so far we're batting 1,000 here. So, and I looked up journalism just so that we could have that as well, and went ahead and went through, and it looks like, to me, WikiLeaks checks off on all the major boxes there. So just because we have actual source documents, so the reporting is better, doesn't mean that it's not reporting. And there are quite a few people that disagree about Assange not being a journalist, right? These are all of the awards from WikiLeaks. A large majority of them, if you see, come right around that 2011, 2010, 2011, you know, for these. I mean, this is the biggest release ever. The Manning leaks were the biggest in U.S. history, and it really, you know, shone a light on what's going on over there and what was going on to our troops as well over there. So here's a really important thing that happened even after this Assange is arrested, okay? The DNC case, we get a ruling here. So what does the judge rule? The judge rules that WikiLeaks was doing exactly what WikiLeaks was supposed to do, okay? This was a classified, these were classified documents that they published, right? And they also ruled that they were not classified, but private emails that were published, and they ruled that WikiLeaks was entitled to First Amendment protections. This is a U.S. court. They threw the DNC case out with prejudice. This is in July, okay? All right, next thing important with leaks is just to remember that with the Manning leaks, there was no harm caused. The U.S. government in the Manning trial admitted to no harm having been caused by the leaks. They could not find one single person that had been harmed, which quite frankly, I think is kind of amazing. You would have expected even a handful or something, you know, and then we would have talked about like, well, does that equate to, you know, 100,000 unreported civilian casualties, right? Okay. So during this time too, Manning was arrested, right? Manning was jailed in March 2018, so she was arrested right before Assange was. And she showed immense bravery. She did not speak to them. She refused to participate in the WikiLeaks grand jury. She called it a witch hunt, and she stayed in prison for that. Sorry. One other thing too to note with that is in the extradition hearing, the whole thing with Manning was really important, right? Because the hacking charge centered around Manning at that point and around Julian Assange helping her to agreeing to help her create a password, right, to crack into a government system. So it comes out in the extradition hearing that that's actually not That's not what happened. She already had the access to the documents. That was already done. What she had asked him for was help to be undetected so that she could watch videos undetected, movies, play video games. That's what they wanted to do, okay? So in the middle, that's in the first part of the hearing, and later the US issues an even bigger superseding indictment on that point, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and they bring in another witness, and his name is Siggy Thordarson, and that's when they expand that that part of the charge to include his testimony against Assange. Okay. All right, so another point of the government's is that WikiLeaks didn't redact. Another thing that comes out in the hearing is that not only did they redact, but WikiLeaks redacted more than any of the other major publications that were there. Assange, there were numerous witness testimonies about Assange staying up later to redact, later than anybody else, pushing people to do it more so, to take more time doing it. So there were unredacted cables that were published, but they were not published by Julian Assange first. They were leaked actually by The Guardian, okay? And that's why I included this slide from Google, because I thought it was just excellent. What do you have here from the Daily Mail? Guardian published unredacted WikiLeaks cables. And then you have from The Guardian, WikiLeaks publishes full cache of unredacted cables. So I think that's quite funny. You have the dichotomy there, but it was in fact The Guardian. They published, Luke Harding in a book of his published the keys, and then Cyber Reason was able to take that, figure that out, and they published all of the unredacted material. Have they been charged? No, not at all. That's just more about what I had gone into. So again, you still have to ask yourself, as we go through here, why Julian Assange? What parts here? Where is the case? What are we talking about? This is a journalist. Other people have published the same information. So what are we looking at? So here's something here. First time it's coming out that we're getting the tie to the CIA and the UC Global operation. Okay, and it's tied directly to Trump through Sheldon Adelson. And this is through Max Blumenthal reports this, okay? So this is a big deal. This is starting to show that, even before Assange was arrested, he was being spied upon, and that we were a part of that. This is attorneys, his doctors. So where's the fair trial? So one thing of note, Assange is in prison in 23 and a half hour because of COVID, right? Or not COVID quite yet, I apologize. But right before this, he publishes the Syria files. So still publishing, WikiLeaks is still publishing even while Assange is in prison, and it isn't until after COVID that stops. Okay, and that's when we haven't really seen anything released from WikiLeaks too much since. Okay, so Assange actually won his extradition hearing. That's might be surprising to some people, but he did. The judge ruled against extradition only on the points of suicide, his mental health, saying that we would not be able to prevent him doing that. So really it was a win for Assange, but it was a loss for free press. But it was, especially in the UK. Basically now in the UK, there is a precedent set that there is, if you are an investigative journalist and you would like to report on the national security of the United States government, you can be extradited. The US has a right to extradite you if they deem that to be a threat to their national security. So that's a really big precedent there set globally just for the UK. Okay. So right now where we stand is the US government has appealed, and I just want to note here this last part of the appeal. What they're appealing on mainly is that they question the Professor Kopelman's testimony, which the judge relied upon heavily. Now this material issue that they're questioning him on is he did not at the time divulge that Julian was married to Stella, or not married, but in a relationship with Stella and had the boys, okay? And that's because at the time nobody knew about it and their life was under threat. So that's part of what you have there for that issue. Most people expect that. That's very flimsy. It has nothing to do with his expertise or with, if anything, it's more in the favor of Julian Assange. And then the last part here is this assurance from the US government that he will not be placed under SAMs, which is Special Administrative Measures, and that he will not go to ADX Florence. So I underline this part here because they give us this assurance, and then the next thing they say is, unless he were to do something subsequent to the offering of these assurances that meets the tests for the imposition of SAMs or designation to ADX. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't even understand how that's not just thrown out as a complete absurdity. Flat out saying, we will not do this unless when he's here, we determine that that we might need to do this. It's crazy. So you guys have been seeing that picture that I've been showing. This is just a note that, in these proceedings, in his own proceedings, he was too unwell to attend. Things have been really rough for him. This is from his friend, John Pilger. Just kind of goes through, if you want to read through some of these, what he's been dealing with out there. He walks in his cell to have a marathon. He hadn't seen his kids for, I think it was 8 months because of COVID. When COVID happened, the restrictions came down even more. A friend of his committed suicide just a couple of cells over. He's, medicated, still psychologically tortured, and of course under this huge threat, and not even able to really prepare for his case properly. And that we'll go into here. Since the beginning, Reporters Without Borders has been covering the hearing. And just keep in mind, this is a Western country. This is the UK. This is the US, right? We are the people who are supposed to be the bastions of free press. I mean, certainly we've been having a lot of wars to bring free press all around, right? So she says she's been all around the world covering hearings. She said she's never encountered anything as ridiculous as trying to cover the Assange hearing in the UK. That's how difficult it was for her to even be able to get inside to watch these proceedings. So it's been hard as a group to really even find the information, let alone get it out there, right? It's a small handful of people really trying to do something to raise awareness about this because of how grave the consequences are. So, oops, I wasn't speaking into this, sorry. Okay, so let's keep going here. Just recently, you heard me bring up Siggy. So everybody knew that this guy was a liar when they brought it up in the first place. I mean, honestly, it was, here's the hacking charge. Oh, wait, we didn't mean that. Here's another one, And everybody knew Siggy to be, he was a known liar, thief, and pedophile at the time that superseding indictment was issued. So surprising, he comes out publicly, a real smart guy, and says that he lied about everything, and that he lied to the FBI so that he could have immunity for his other crimes. So there you go, that happened. And Iceland was smart enough to jail him, right? So he is in jail in Iceland. And then what else do we have that's come out? And this is actually a positive thing, right? Finally, we have something in the mainstream media coming out, covering a new part of it. This was from Yahoo. It came out that since the Vault 7 publications, that's really when they started to go after him with the CIA. That's when Pompeo had come in and he started to go really after them for those Vault 7 publications. And there you have it. So when this came out, it was a big deal because before, even though we knew that he was being spied upon, etc., this is a really direct link to the CIA. And also, it's flat out, they were discussing to murder and assassinate him. So keep in mind, we're still trying to, we're still supposedly extraditing here for a trial, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go through here again the U.S. government position. Basically, I've gone through here and I've cited as false, and my source is the US government. And really the two main things here is, so as far as Julian Assange not being a journalist, the citing is our own DNC ruling. We have it in US law as precedent that WikiLeaks is in fact a news organization and Julian Assange is in fact a journalist. So ideas of him not being journalist are just simply not true. And as far as anything being a threat, it wasn't a threat. You know, that's the US government has said flat out that nobody was harmed. Since when do we, you know, you can't, you can't throw somebody's life away for 175 years because somebody may have been, right? You know, this is a concrete court case. So, and just through here, those two things there, I think as we've gone through here, you just can really see that that's, the case against Assange is quite weak. So what is the US government, what is he facing here? He's facing special administrative measures. So I'm just gonna go to a, hopefully this link works. Oh. Sorry, I don't have my cursor. Can you help me there?
There you go.
There it is. No.
Give it a shot. So it's right here, prisoner testimony?
Mm-hmm, thank you. It's coming out.
There you go.
Oh, I don't know if our...
Should either be coming out of there or out of yours as your volume turned up?
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Can you please come up here again? I don't, the thing for it is missing.
Oh, okay.
At this
Oh,
California
there we go.
prison, things got so desperate that prisoners were smashing windows and
Yikes!
Finish that.
There you go. Should be up here.
In the spirit of Liberty on the Rocks.
Go back to your, press that play button.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess you guys can see why I wanted to show that video. Also, under special administrative measures, you and I would not know what's happening in the court proceedings. He would be gagged. His lawyers would be gagged. There would be no oversight of the press here, which I don't think we would. Maybe we wouldn't expect that too much, anyhow. Okay, so I think. Hopefully a little bit here, I've shown you that this is, you know, this idea of him as a hero or a villain is really, it's just not the point. Okay, you know, what's the point? It's the whistleblower protections, our First Amendment, war crimes. These things are the point. So this is what, when I say why Julian Assange, this is what I would say is why. You know, this is about our free press. So, and that's why you know, it's every issue is affected by this. Every issue is affected by the free press, everyone. So once the government has oversight over that, it's really game over for anything that you're interested in. So. There's one other video that I want to show you guys, and then I will open it up for questions.
All of you, we are going to win this fight. Remember, when this Spanish company that was hired to oversee the security of Julian Assange decided to turn on him, spying on him instead, the relationship you had with his doctors and lawyers always monitored, always gathered, always sent to the United States. This was paid for by the biggest financial backer of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, and now Mike Pompeo. Spying on Assange. At the start of the company, you knew exactly who you were working for, where the material would go to. It would go to the CIA. In internal emails, they said, we are now working for the dark force. And that is exactly what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with the dark force. We're dealing with the dark force that is growing its power and its overreach. It's a dark force that decides that they can assassinate people, high-level officials in foreign countries with drone attacks. It's a dark force who kills children in war zones. It's a dark force that with impunity assassinate Reuters journalists as we exposed in the collateral video. It's a dark force that now wants Julian extradited to the United States and thrown in a cell to spend the rest of his days there. We must stop it. We must stop this force. This is not about left or right in politics. We can unite on this. It's a dark force versus us who want justice, transparency, accountability, and truth. We have the momentum with us. Please tell everybody that you know that they have to side with Assange and fight against extradition. If they tell you, I would rather fight for the environment or against animal cruelty or gender equality, tell them they are about to take every right away from you. You will not be able to fight for any other cause. We are talking about the fundamentals here. We must fight against extradition. We must save Julian Assange.
All right.
So, where does the Supreme Court come into all this? Would they have jurisdiction over this case if Julian Assange is convicted? Could he appeal to the Supreme Court, or is that not their jurisdiction since is he a foreigner?
He is a foreigner. Okay. So really we're in, at least right now, we're in slightly, so right now the UK courts would have nothing to do with what's going on right now. All in the UK's hands for extradition. Once he was here, yes.
Yes, he could
appeal. As he went through, he would be able to appeal to the Supreme Court. But the issue here, and one of the things that we really try to stress, is that, and you'll see like the progression of our emails to our members, because is the psychological torture. So the thing that everybody's really worried about, and they're concerned even with this time that it could take in the UK process with these appeals happening, that the punishment or the process is the punishment. Mm-hmm. So that's the fear. Okay. But yes, that's right now we're in this forever appeals process.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've got a question back here actually.
Okay.
Isn't Julian Assange just like a Russian agent though? In all seriousness, do you think that he actually revealed a source with what he said about Seth Rich? Because I know there's a lot of debate about that.
Do I personally think so? I think that, no, I actually don't personally think that he revealed a source when he did that. I really don't. I think that what he said flat out is, look, like there's somebody who was just murdered, with the DNC. We just had these leaks. And I think his words got twisted for that to mean something else. I do think that there's a lot of evidence out there that Seth Rich most likely was the source. We know for sure it wasn't this, that the emails released by WikiLeaks, they were pristine. And it was from an inside job. They can prove that with forensics on the way it was downloaded. So.
Sorry, I'm still confused. What is the Trump administration had against Assange? Because DNC, yes, he published Clinton's emails, but why Trump administration had something against him?
So I think that's a great question. It was something that I had kind of wondered myself. So one of the big reasons is because Assange refused to reveal that source. So he would not reveal the source 100% or he would not reveal the source at all for the DNC leaks. So there are people who say that that he did reveal the source there, but he really didn't. So that's why, as far as Trump's perspective was, and keep in mind that some of this is a little bit of educated speculation, okay, but he would not reveal the source, and he could have put to bed all of the Russiagate had he revealed a source. So it was the thought of the Trump administration. And then you have also the CIA, the publication of Vault 7, and so under Pompeo as well. So that's also pressure from the CIA to get Assange. Does that answer your question or partially?
Almost not, because as far as I know, CIA right now against Trump, if I understand the situation.
Correct, but the CIA can be against more than one person.
But Trump administration wasn't.
That did not mean that to come out that way. But no, I hear what you're saying, yes.
People have suicides and
Right.
Might be, when you say Trump administration, do you mean Trump personally as well in that, or?
So Trump personally in that as well would only be in the sense of the Assange not revealing the leak, and that did come out in some of the Fairbanks testimony. So that's one thing too, is if you guys want, you should, you should really read through the hearing. That's fascinating. And that would be specifically, let me get your email address, because I will give you more information on that too, because it goes into you'd have to read some of this testimony to really get into why they're saying that Trump also had something with Assange, and it has to do with the source.
So I'd like to sort of go and make a difference between Assange and WikiLeaks, because Assange to me is he's a victim, and I don't know how much we can help him, and what the value of it is. But to defend free press, we can continue helping WikiLeaks. And the question is. Is anyone picking that up? Does some brave soul out there have the helm now at WikiLeaks and continues to publish stuff?
So right now, Kristen Harafson is the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. So they did publish the OPCW files, back in 2019, and it is not uncommon. You saw also when Assange first went into asylum, they had a little bit of break there of some of the top publications. So I have seen another publication since, but so to my knowledge, WikiLeaks isn't necessarily going anywhere. Yeah, but one thing to your point here about not being able to help Assange is I don't think that is true. Actually, I think that that's something that they would really like to convince everybody of, that there's nothing that you can do and nothing you do is important. Well, I can tell you that firsthand, I've seen. It was like pulling teeth to get free press groups to finally come out in defense, and human rights groups in defense against WikiLeaks, but we did it. Right? There's 24 now that all the major press groups are against this. So those things build, damn it, he deserves it. He deserves for everybody to try. He deserves to at least be able to see that I think, this is a man who really put it on the line, and he kept going, and he was just a journalist. But a really good one, so, but there is still stuff that we can do. And I put this up here, obviously you guys, it's many, this happening many times. That's what makes a difference. So I hope you guys will go and, contact me. I hope that if you want this presentation, I can give it to you. I can give you whatever more information. If you know of anybody else, that we can do some outreach to or give some more information to, or if there's something else that your group is, wants to, we're well connected with everybody in the Assange movement. It's actually pretty incredible. I got to interview an ambassador to Syria from the UK, which just doesn't happen. I'm not in a position to be doing something like that, but we did that on an Assange vigil, and it's because people see how important this issue, they see what Kristen was talking about, this is the dark part. This is the US losing its way on free press. This is the choke down if this indictment goes through, and if the extradition goes through, the indictment really will pretty much go through, because of the SAMs.
I'm afraid you already answered my question, because my question was what sparked your passion into carrying the flame for Julian Assange? What was it that made you be who you are today?
For me, it was that shot out of the embassy. When he was arrested and taken out of the embassy, that's when everything really became real to me. And it had the opposite effect on me. They actually had denied Julian Assange his shaving supplies for a couple months so that he looks scruffy like this. This whole entire thing was planned. I could go and I could be here for days, but that had the opposite effect on me. I was like, holy cow, here's somebody that, like you said, that separation between WikiLeaks and Assange, like to me, it was just WikiLeaks. Assange was not that he wasn't human, but you know what I mean? He wasn't that type of figure, and he still really isn't, that's still separated, so, but.
First of all, thank you for the great presentation. It was really a pleasure to listening to you. And I have two questions. The first one is, could you give a bit of an impression what is life in the embassy look like? Because I read some reports of like embassy persons saying, he was really like weird, as you said. And I'm curious, how did you find out that these allegations were staged? And my second question is, you kind of catched on and strived on the whole WikiLeaks topic, and in the recent years they kind of got very, they slowed down in their publishing. I was a bit frustrated by that because 10 years ago I was like, it's going to happen very often now, and it's going to be changing the role of government, and it's really slowed down. And do you think the only reason for that is that that they are in fear of also get, in court or get in prison for their work, or are there also other like practical reasons why the whole process slowed down?
So I'm going to answer your last question first, and then you can remind me of your first one again, because I was really interested. Like that was a great question, and it's also something I think a lot of people wonder about. And I think a couple of things possible as well is sources. One thing that we've seen, and this was before WikiLeaks was indicted, before Assange was indicted, is you've seen this progression through whistleblowers at least. So we've, that's Obama was 9 whistleblowers. So it was like exponentially, or it was more than all other past presidents combined. So that's insane. So, this is like, that's what I mean about there's multiple things there. You know what I mean? Everybody hated Assange. Why? Because, we're the ones who don't. We're not in power. Get into power and maybe, maybe you will. I don't know. It depends on the type of person you are. But so I don't know. I think that does have something to do with it. I think obviously, but we have seen publications since he was in prison even. So WikiLeaks, from what I can see, isn't going anywhere. But I do think that it has had the chilling effect, right? because we haven't seen a publisher indicted under the Espionage Act, but with some of the responses in the media, we might as well have, right? Where's the free press? You know, where's our free press? So to me, in some ways, I think, you know, people say, well, that's already gone, blah, blah, blah. Well, this is when it starts to get real dark, right? So, and then tell me again your first.
It was about the situation in the embassy, you know,
the
practical kind of thing. But I was curious because I heard like there were like real witnesses who said, "Oh, he was like really gross." But I'm not taking a position here, but I was just curious. How did you find out these allegations were staged?
So, well, partially is from the UC Global case and the general like line of smears like going against him. And from, let's see here, I'm trying to think of if there was a specific article there that we had read. I know it was around from the UC Global leaks and different things that have come out around that, so probably in the Max Blumenthal article or somewhere there. But he was under really terrible conditions there. Do you know what I mean? So they took, I think that things that had deteriorated got incredibly blown out of proportion. And, you know, you take somebody in there who's under this type of surveillance and this type of, you know, he had people meeting him in the bathroom, right? And at this time, keep in mind too, he had people doing this and going through this without proof that it was happening. Okay, so you're like, you know, you're telling people meet me in the bathroom. So that's the state that he was in. So my contention would be that if some of these things, like if there was a thing of, you know, something on the wall or whatever like that, it was probably put greatly out of proportion, and that I would give Assange quite a bit of excuses for what he went through in that embassy. I mean, I really would. I think the man's, I did not think of him as hero or villain. I don't like the media. I'd rather just not even have to deal with it. But I honestly do think of him pretty much as a hero now when I've just learned more about supporting him. I'm like, holy cow, this is a good guy, you know, let's do something here. So I hope that answered your question somewhat. Okay.
So kind of to touch on Artem's question about why the CIA was going after Julian, it seems like they really painted him as a right-winger and a Trump supporter. If I recall correctly, they never even interviewed him about the Russiagate hacks. They specifically used that to destroy his credibility, and so he lost a lot of his support on the left. So organizations like the Young Turks or the Intercept pretty much completely turned on him, and I think a lot of people on the left did. Do you think that is a big part of why he is in prison now, is because he lost a lot of support on the left?
Yes, I do, for sure. I think that's definitely a big reason that we see him still in prison right now. I think naturally all of those people would have, prior to that release, supported him. It would not have been that difficult to get them on board. But one thing that you'll see, and this is even from the beginning there, is that it goes back and forward, right? Nobody wants Assange around, not the right or the left, okay? Because they know, they might put some show on for us, but they know that he's what his character is, and they most certainly know it now. I think it's evidenced too of his character that he had to be silenced after they spied on him, right? They knew that wasn't going to stop. So to your point about the WikiLeaks publications, yes, Assange is a key figure there, you know, and he's a pretty amazing figure. I mean, I don't know of many that reach that status. And sure, you can talk about him personally or whatever, whatever. I don't care. The point is he stuck with his integrity to the people, right? And I can't, you know, it's hard to think of people. I can't name any other, but many others. So
I have maybe strange question. So in Russia there is opinion that Julian Assange did something really wrong for liberty around the world because he shown the picture like United States is not a good country, even though that many people consider that like shining city on the hill of freedom, and because of that, leaders like Putin or Xi Jinping or somebody else, they looks like not so bad. So what do you think about that? So maybe actually he did not very good things when he showed USA as not so good country.
So I think that that's something where you can't lose sight of principle, right? And you can't lose sight of what a person's role is as a journalist, right? Is to bring the truth out, right? So sometimes he's going to be the Russian government, he might be in their favor, right? Or sometimes he might be in the United States government's favor, which he was, when he published all his files on Russia, right? Or on Syria, right? So my thoughts is if you want to think about it in the sense of like, sure, what would have been best for Assange? Would it have been better maybe for, is his public, or let me rephrase that, are his publications I'm trying to make sure I understand your question, but is being in, looking better in the eyes of some other foreign leaders maybe not a good thing for him?
I would say maybe he damaged the idea of liberty around the world, I would say like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. No, for 100%. Yes. I think that he definitely did. Like that's what he did is he blew a hole in the veil. He cut that veil open for a lot of people to see what was really going on in the wars around the world. Yes, I think so.
But liberty can be damaged by that because many people decided, oh, USA is not so free country, it's freedom, it does not work, so we should not follow that idea of constitution and everything like that, because even in the USA you have so much bad things happening.
Correct, 100%. But in that case, I do not, that's where it comes, one of the big phrases here is don't shoot the messenger. And that's what I think is most applicable here. That's 100% not his fault. That's society's fault for having taken over 10 years. 10 years we were in Afghanistan. Julian Assange has a video 10 years ago talking about how that's going to be an endless war, that it's not a war that we're meant to win. It's a war just to, spread money around, do whatever you're going to do. So I would say that that's no, I don't think it's ever against liberty. I'm with WikiLeaks on that. The more information, put it out there. It's up to you and I. It's up to citizens who have a vote to know what's going on, to understand that when the media is lying to you in one situation, maybe it's other situations as well. So I would say, so my answer would be if it has been bad for liberty, then that certainly wasn't the fault of Julian Assange.
Last question.
Yeah, so I'm struggling to capture the value of Julian Assange, of keeping him alive. Like, if I'm the CIA, if I'm, whoever, I can hang Jeffrey Epstein, in a blink, but somehow Julian Assange is still alive. And, it's not to teach Julian Assange any lesson. Obviously, he's learned something, or he hasn't learned, but it doesn't matter, right? It's to teach the rest of us a lesson. But it's clear that the crowd doesn't care. Like, the crowd doesn't read the media. Very few even know about WikiLeaks. So why not get rid of him? And so what's the value? Is it only because of the chilling effect it has on the rest of journalists?
Sorry, I guess it's my own mouth on this microphone. Okay, so I would say, I can't answer that question, obviously 100% for anybody, for you. I don't know that anybody can. What my assumption is a big reason for why Julian Assange is because they are able to push through those 17 counts and criminalize free press. And that is why I think specifically we have to stop this indictment, because so there's two things here, right? I could see it being a positive with Julian Assange and a negative. And I would assume that for the US government and other parties involved, that he is that to them. He's a conundrum. They're not sure what to do. And that might be part of why he's still alive, but, they're trying to maybe ruin him, auto-warbly him or whatever.
Right, so the precedents are really what they're after.
That's what I think. That's really what I think. I think that's what it's always been about. I think you see a progression going. I can't tell you, everything that's going on, but
could it possibly not just be the size of the audience, but who is actually the audience?
Last question.
Because there's a lot of people that are paying attention to this are people of importance that have a lot of skin in the game. So maybe it isn't the fact that Julian Assange is alive is because of the type of audience that is paying attention to the story.
That's a possibility there. That's a possibility. I hope so. I hope he has some. I don't know. It's a hard one. It really is. We wonder that too. I mean, there's people who say for sure they're trying to kill him. That's what's happening right now without actually being the ones to do it. They'll be happy when he does die. But what they don't want is him to be a martyr, and we're really trying to show them that they don't want that. But
That's our talk. Give it up for Kendra.